From transitory to the peak of the crisis to a 39-year record. This is the story of the inflation misunderstanding and mishandling in 2021, as well as a timid look into what's coming in 2022. Welcome to Old Foundry Media. I'm your host, The Crane Man. Let's fire it up. I'll begin with this article from CNN, published December 10 of 2021. It reads, President Joe Biden on Friday said that while he recognizes that inflation is a real problem, he feels the U.S. is at the peak of price inflation. Biden told CNN's Caitlin Collins that he feels inflation will decrease upon passage of his administration's Build Back Better plan because it's reducing costs for ordinary people. I think it's the peak of the crisis, Biden said. Unfortunately for Biden, that was not the case. As we can see in this New York Post article published 13 days later, which says, the inflation rate is running at its hottest pace in nearly 4 decades, as widespread supply disruptions, high consumer demand, and worker shortages fuel a surge in prices. Consumer prices soared by 5.7% in the year through November, according to the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index released by the Commerce Department Thursday. That topped the previous month's rate of 5.1%, becoming the fastest pace increase since February of 1982, when it hit 6.2%. The string of annual price gains have far outpaced the 2% inflation target set by the Federal Reserve. Food and energy prices rose by 4.7% in November from the prior year, which is also the highest since 1982. Consumer spending, which accounts for 70% of U.S. economic activity, rose 0.6% in November, a solid gain but below the 1.4% surge in October. The inflation jump largely reflected increasing energy costs, which rose 34% from a year ago, and food costs, which rose 5.6% over that same time period. Services inflation rose by 4.3% in November, and goods inflation increased 8.5%, outpacing the 7.6% rate a month prior, the data shows. And it's not just America being hit by inflation. In this CNBC article, we see Turkish currency faces a rocky new year as inflation hits 19-year high and could go higher. Last month revealed a new rescue plan to bolster the currency without raising rates, which many economists criticized as unsustainable. The Turkish president continues to brush aside concerns, saying that the excessive price increases are thorns and pebbles on Turkey's path. Goldman Sachs sees Turkey inflation going above 40% for most of the coming year. If we look back to July of 2021, we can see where Joe missed the mark again. In this New York Post article, Biden said the inflation would be temporary. President Biden on Monday insisted that his massive spending plans aren't causing price hikes on everything from bacon and bread to gas and electricity, saying inflation is temporary and expected after the COVID-19 pandemic. Biden argued that about 60% of price increases are caused by transitory effects linked to COVID-19, such as shortages of lumber and semiconductors, and aren't a sign of substantial long-term inflation linked to deficit spending. Our experts believe, and the data show, that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. The reality is you can't flip the global economics light back on and not expect this to happen, Biden said. Biden also claims that a pair of massive bills that he hopes to ram through Congress this year, costing a combined $4.7 trillion, would actually reduce inflation. At least in theory, the bills would be offset by tax hikes and other revenue sources, though the details remain in flux. If your primary concern right now is inflation, you should be even more enthusiastic about this plan, Biden said in remarks from the White House State Dining Room. These steps will enhance our productivity, raising wages without raising prices, and won't increase inflation. It will take the pressure off of inflation.
Anyway.
The dramatic increase in prices is displayed in this article from CBS published November 23rd of 2021. Here are some of the price increases Americans were experiencing at that point. Fuel oil up 60% to average of $3.42 per gallon. Gasoline up 57% to average of $3.48 per gallon. Diesel fuel up 44% to $3.55 per gallon. Uncooked beef up average of 15% to $5.24 per pound. Boneless chuck roast, USDA choice, up 29% to $7.40 per pound. Ground beef, up 18% to $4.72 per pound. Bacon, up 28% to $7.32 per pound. Chicken breast, up 9.1% to $3.59 per pound. And fresh whole chicken, down 3.6% to $1.52 per pound. Eggs, up 29% to $1.82 per dozen. Whole milk, up 8.4% to $3.66 per gallon. In this Forbes article, Old Steve himself says, investors need to understand that there are two kinds of inflation, monetary and non-monetary. Last year, most of the increases in prices came from pandemic disruptions, made worse by Biden administration blunders. This is non-monetary inflation. The other type of inflation comes from the Federal Reserve printing too much money. Our central bank has been using a certain gimmick, reversible repurchase agreements, on an unprecedented scale to keep this mountain of money from cascading into the economy. But these kinds of ploys always end badly. Moreover, the Fed has announced that come spring it will no longer be adding its holdings into government bonds, which means higher interest rates than even the Fed anticipates. And that's bad news for the economy and the stock market. And in this Fox Business article, Kevin Hassett predicts double-digit inflation in 2022. He says we're looking at government spending relative to GDP and about 1943 levels. And so all of the spending, especially the last run from the Democrats, has been monetized by the Fed. In fact, in some auctions, in order for the U.S. to sell $1 worth of treasuries, the Fed had to buy $1.50 because there are so many customers leaving, So the Fed has made the spending binge possible. And now, it's not just the Fed that's going to have to fix it. Congress is going to have to cut spending. Otherwise, the deficits are so high that the Fed is just not going to be able to get inflation under control. I'm virtually certain that we're going to see double-digit inflation this year because of all the irresponsible Biden policy, both feeding demand and attacking supply. And that puts the Fed behind the eight ball because they could lift interest rates. They could cut back on the balance sheet, but they're not going to be able to do it enough to get inflation under control. What do you think we're in for in 2022? In my opinion, I think it'll get worse, and the Biden admin will continue to produce false economic narratives, then wonder why all confidence indices are low. Do you think the Biden administration has the will or the competence to fix inflation? Or do you think this trend of increasing inflation will continue to get worse? Let me know in the comments below. In this CNN article, published one day before the New York Post article that detailed how inflation has hit a 39-year high, Biden touted his progress the administration had supposedly made in clearing up the supply chain crisis. The article reads, President Joe Biden on Wednesday touted progress his administration has made in alleviating supply chain issues that have spurred shortages of consumer products, raised prices for Americans, and contributed significantly to historic levels of inflation in the United States. We brought together business and labor leaders to solve problems, and the much-predicted crisis didn't occur. Packages are moving, gifts are being delivered, and shelves are not empty, Biden said at the White House. But less than 1 month after Biden had touted this, people were noticing it wasn't true. Hats off to Shawn for his incredible impersonation in the following clip.
Look at it. Bare shelves all over the place. They say we're building back better. And yet we have nothing in the supermarkets. We're standing with the bare shelves. Bare shelves, Biden, okay? Empty shelves, Joe. It's a disgrace.
Then, the Bare Shelves Biden hashtag was born, and it's been trending on Twitter ever since. This photo shows a CVS cough and flu selection in Philadelphia. This was posted January 2nd, 2022. Hashtag Bare Shelves Biden. Crypto Coin Lord posted a pic of the shelves in his undisclosed location today. Hashtag Bare Shelves Biden. A Walmart in Eastland, Texas. A Trader Joe's in Falls Church, Virginia. Here's an Amazon Fresh store in Bellevue, Washington. Hashtag Bare Shelves Biden. And here's a Whole Foods in Fresno, California. Hashtag Bare Shelves Biden. This Destin, Florida toilet paper aisle is giving me flashbacks to early 2020. And there's not much food in this section of a Food Lion in North Carolina. I'll finish with a meme that, hilariously, we may see become reality somewhere on the 2024 campaign trail. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. This is the Crane Man, punching out.